The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, it has been an interesting debate, and I'd like to begin by saying to those who have doubt about the ability of Labor to hold the government to account in terms of any review or this committee, they only needed to listen to the contributions that we have heard from Mr Shearer and Mr Goff and Mr Little to know that we are determined to carry out our role in a transparent and open way and in the best interest of New Zealand. I just want to answer some points that have been made today, and I have to disagree with Mojo Mathis. This is not about whether it's a man or a woman or a bum on a seat or numbers. It's about the most competent person for the job. For example, I am the deputy leader of this party and I have been a police minister. I perhaps could have done this role, but I do not believe that I have the skills that David Shearer has. When I look on balance as to who we would put on this committee, I could not go past a person who has had on-the-ground experience, who has actually worked in areas, has worked with intelligence agencies and has been the leader of the opposition. And so when deciding who was the best person, there could have been a number of people. Could have been someone from New Zealand First. It could have been someone from the Greens. But at the end of the day, I believe that David Shearer has the skills that we need on this committee. And Mr Speaker, this is going to be a very important work, because I know as a New Zealander, as a parent, as a constituency MP, there is a lot of unease in the New Zealand community about what is happening overseas. It does seem like a long way away from New Zealand, but it's not in reality. You only need to speak with the Australians to know how concerned they are about security matters. We are a little different in New Zealand. We do have the distance from these places, and we do have a different idea about the balance between security and human rights and the ability for people to have their privacy. And what we have to do here is to balance those two rights. The rights for New Zealanders to be secure in their homes, in their streets, the right to be secure against threats from other nations, from other people, and the right to have their privacy. And so that is going to be where we're going to put a lot of effort in getting that balance right. But I think it's important to point out that we have been interested in a review of these security intelligence agencies for a long time. As David Shearer pointed out, 2 years ago we called for a review. We believed that there had been too much secrecy, not enough openness. And when we hear criticism that Labor has been in the club and things happened under Labor, I can assure members that if the former Prime Minister knew that there were illegal things happening, she would have acted. And so I take exception to the idea that we just let illegal activities by those agencies occur. We have said there ought to be a review of the intelligence services, that they ought to be held to account, and there ought to be much more transparencies. And I am very attracted to the three issues that David Shearer put forward today, that the terms of reference for this review should be shared, and we will push for that. We will push the government to share the terms of reference. Why would they not share them? What would be a problem with that? And I believe a government that has their ears open, knowing that we need to work across this House, will listen to that call. I do believe there ought to be, should have an input on those who do carry out the review. And I think that there should be a call across this House for people to put in nominations for those people to carry out the review. And I also do believe, and Phil Goff made a very, very good point, and so did Mr Shearer, and that is about the use of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. That committee, as you heard today, was able to undertake work that you would normally have in the privacy and the secrecy of another committee. They were able to do it in public and to work across this House. Why should that not be a standard practice in this country? So we are very keen, Mr. Speaker, to have a committee that is able to work, is able to get out decisions, that is more open and more transparent. And I think that we have shown from the work that we did in recent legislation that we were able to implement change if you know how to work cooperatively. If you look at the changes that were made in the legislation that we recently had, you will see that we were able to get, for example, to cut down the time for warrantless surveillance from 48 hours to 24 hours. That was done by negotiation, by work, and being constructive in terms of the work that we carried out. We negotiated restricting the SIS new powers to counter-terrorism work only. So that was able to be done by working constructively and maturely within a committee. We were able to bring in a sunset clause. These were changes the government didn't want. They weren't in favour of these, but they were negotiated by our excellent members on that committee, Phil Goff and David Shearer. And I think they have shown that Labor is able to work constructively for the benefit of New Zealanders. So I have to say that in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, that I support the nomination of David Shearer to this committee, that I want this committee to be a more open and transparent one, that I want us to get the very best intelligence services in New Zealand to benefit New Zealanders so that they can feel secure in their homes and on the streets as much as possible in this troubled world that we live in. And there is no doubt it is a different world to those of the 60s and 70s and the benign environment many of us lived in. It is a problem that we face this far away, and how we react to it is going to be important. And good intelligence services is an important part of it. But as I said, the balance between intelligence services and their ability to carry out their job and the rights of New Zealanders to their privacy is a balance that we will watch very closely indeed.
I call Tracy